Hi, it's your boy Ron Big Black Garrett. I just wanted to come to you today to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. And it's something I've talked to a few people about on every podcast I've been on, the Ketogenic Athlete, um, the Keto Savages podcast, and MMA Nutrition podcast. I've talked about bringing keto to the inner city, bringing it to underserved neighborhoods, some of the neighborhoods that truly need this information the most. So many of these neighborhoods just don't have the information coming to them. It's not that it's not accessible, because with the advent of the internet, this information is accessible. If I have it, anyone can have it. But at the same time, these neighborhoods are just like every other neighborhood. The information just doesn't get to them. And a lot of time, people like me have the resources to be able to go around, search for doctors who are willing to take and give us an opportunity to try something different. Whereas in a lot of these underserved neighborhoods, these clinicians have to really abide by what the government guidelines are, or they could just lose their funding, period. There's a whole bunch of things that we just don't simply understand. It simply just doesn't leak down to the hood. And that is that what you've been taught, what we've been taught, is just a myth and a lie. A lot of the lies are perpetrated as told by Nina Teicholz and other people in the ketogenic sphere, in this new movement of the health industry sphere. It's just a lot of these lies and manipulations of policy and all these things by Ansel Keys and some of the other people who doctored and manipulated nutrition advice, backed by Big Pharma, Big Sugar, Big Food, and all of these other entities. And now so many communities, especially minority communities, are being hit with epidemic portions of diabetes and other things. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because number one, I come from the hood. A little bit about me is that I grew up in a small town in Texas, and I grew up when the epidemic of crack and all of these other things came around. I avoided that stuff, but I still did my little dirt in drugs and a few other things. A lot of things people didn't even know I was into. I was breaking into places, doing some things, and thank God that I got out of those situations by some good decisions that were made. I feel like it was guided by the hand of God, but regardless of what you think, it was those things, when I started making different decisions, that caused me to be where I'm at today. And I'm thankful for that. But I also have a responsibility to come back and give back. And I've given back in a number of ways. However, the way that's really near and dear to my heart right now, as I just said before, is trying to bring keto and better nutrition, and at least dispel the myths and the rumors and the lies about nutrition advice and how we've been duped at the behest of our government and other entities to the inner city. Now, the keto sphere is an awesome place. One of the things that I find most difficult about it is that, just like a lot of other segments of our society, there's so many entities that don't want various niches in there. And so that's where I feel like I and others come in to balance it out. And that is to bring what I said on the Ketogenic Athlete and a couple of the podcasts, bring more color into it. Let's just be honest. It's mostly because of the information and everything that's going out there. It's mostly a light-colored spectrum of people. And that's not a knock on the community. That's just the way it is. I'm not one of these people that just going to bring up and say that there's a conspiracy and nothing like that. It's really not. I have been so welcomed. I and others who are of color have been so welcomed by this community, because this community doesn't see color. This community sees a need for people to be healthy. And that's what I love about this community, because we cross racial boundaries, racial lines. It's all about health. I've been helped behind the scenes by keto evangelists Danny Vega, Robert Sykes, aka Keto Savage, MMA Nutrition, Jeffrey Hubish, and Dr. John Lemansky and others have talked to me. Recently, Jimmy Moore has actually, we've corresponded over social media, just he's wanting to really bring this topic out into the light because he realizes it's a problem, and he really wants to use his platform to do more to bring keto to the inner city. And so many of these other people, man. And whenever I'm blessed to be able to get on a podcast or in print or whatever, no one's trying to hold us back. And that's the cool thing. The only people that are trying to hold us back are the people who profit off of our sickness. And they do that to all people, no matter what color they are. But the big boundary that I see is that the discussion of how to deal with keto and bringing it to the inner city, bringing it to underserved neighborhoods, is just not discussed enough. And I feel like that time is coming. I feel like people who are titans in the industry, like Jimmy Moore and Two Keto Dudes and these other people, keto evangelists and all of these other people, I feel like they are on the cusp of doing some great things in this area, and I'm excited to see about it. I plan on going to a couple of conventions next year. I already have my plans to go to KetoCon because of some words that I spoke behind the scenes with some people in the keto evangelist sphere, mainly my boy Chris Duckett. But I plan on doing that, and I'm hoping to go to Keto Fest also, because if I'm going to want progress in this area, somebody's got to step up to do it. I've waited long enough for other people to do it, and I think it's time for me to at least go further than podcasts to be able to do some things. That's why I started all these social media things. That's why I started this YouTube stuff. I really didn't want to do it because I just don't feel like I have a voice for this or a voice for that, even though I speak often to kids. But that's where I'm headed. A few things that I'm doing locally. I'm speaking to some of our kids in my inner city ministry, speaking to some of the people that lead them, just sharing my story. I share my story with my church congregation. I share my story with when I go in the hood. I mean, I'm in there sometimes. I'm talking to gangbangers. I'm talking to whole different people that were like me when I was younger. I talk to them about keto, and you'd be surprised that the knowledge base that sometimes we don't think is there is actually there. And there's a lot of care. And a lot of it is because they've seen people get their feet cut off. They've seen people die of heart attacks at 32 and 40 years old. The expectation is to die by a bullet. So when it's not dying by a bullet, when it's dying by heart attacks and other disease, it's a shocker. It's more common to think someone's going to get killed by some other means. So that's what we're dealing with here, folks. That's where we're going. Some of the strategies that I've been using is to make sure that the people that I talk to understand that if you want to do this thing by color, let's talk about the African diet. If you're black, you go back and you look at what Africans traditionally ate before the European and the Western influences came in. That's why our rates of diabetes seems to be so high, is because our bodies historically ran off fat. Everybody does, but if you want to talk about the grain-based diets, that was more of a European model, and even that wasn't the type of grains that they were eating back then that they're eating today. So these are some of the strategies that I use. It's not about race. It's not about color. It's about food. It's about nutrition. It's about helping people to understand that the way they're eating today is killing them. The things that they love to eat is killing them. It's a selfish thing for people to continue to eat the way that they know is killing people. It's killing them. A piece of sweet potato pie and fried chicken and all these things with all this breading and cooked in these vegetable oils and all these things. It's not worth shortening time and keep staying away from your grandkids. These traditional, and I'm speaking to the black neighborhood now, The traditional black foods that we ate, that it's all surrounded by, used to be surrounded by meat and fat, is now surrounded by carbs. Carbs make up a greater portion of these meals now. And that's what's killing us. It's not the fat. It's not the vegetables cooked in lard like it used to be when I was growing up. My grandmother would cook things in lard and all that. I was actually probably my healthiest back then. It's all the other stuff that goes with that stuff. And it's scientifically proven. Here's the thing, folks. It's scientifically proven. You don't hear about it because big pharma, big food, big grain, big sugar, they have their hand in blocking this information. Why? Because they want you as a customer. They want you as a profit-making machine. I don't say this to try to elicit fear or anything like that, or to elicit conspiracy and all that. Hey, it's easily searchable if you really look for it. There's a lot of research out there. That's what I love about social media. Social media has really brought this to the forefront, you know. And that's why I love, like I said, the line goes from being a racial thing to a health thing. And we're all red on the inside. We're all governed by blood. We're all governed by pink tissue. Our brains are 90-something% fat. So why wouldn't we be expected to live off fat? Why wouldn't we be expected to live off salt when our body is made up of over 2/3 of salt? Our blood is just full of salt. Yet we try to lower salt. We have to lower it because people tell us to lower it, when it's not really the truth. We hear about these statistics about statins increasing, dealing with cholesterol, when statins is just a money-making machine for the industry. All of these things that we have no idea about. It so amazes me that the conspiracy level in the black community has always been there with the distrust of government, yet we continue to trust the government when it comes to food and nutrition. It amazes me how we can be so distrustful on some things and simply trust it. All of the medical advice that we now know in the keto community has been wrong. It's been wrong since the advent of the food pyramid. And these are the things that we need to start researching. We need to start passing these things along. Hey, if you're white and other, quit being scared to open your mouth up and say something. Sometimes you're going to be called a racist. Hey, man, that's okay. You know, wouldn't you rather have said the truth and been called a racist because someone thinks that you're trying to say something because they're black, and possibly save someone's life if one of them hears you? Or do you want to be a coward and sit back and worry about what people think about you all the time? That's one of the biggest problems that we face in this country with racism, is that some white people are scared to speak out on issues because they're afraid of being called a racist. That's not courage. You know, one of my greatest heroes is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and he spoke out against a lot of things. Now, I don't say this to make this a religious post. I say that because that's my life. Jesus governs my life. You're going to hear about it in almost every video that I put up because it is what it is. I would expect the same if you were a Muslim or if you were Jewish or if you were Buddhist. Whatever. One of the podcasts, my favorite podcast that I was on was MMA Nutrition. And we openly discussed his Buddhism and my Christianity. I don't hate on the man for that, and he didn't hate on me for that. And that's the thing. We need to bring that same type of reciprocity into the keto sphere. We need to not be afraid to maybe bring in a scholarship into some of these conferences. We need to maybe see if we can't pool together money for maybe some disadvantaged kids to come to some of these conferences and have some special things for them. Introduce some of these foods to them, or even maybe bring some mobile ideas to a community. You know, like we do with our church ministries and everything. These are some of the ideas that I'm personally thinking of that we can come alongside and do. You know. I say that probably the best avenue to get some of this done would be through the church, because so many churches, the black community is normally centered around the church. But it doesn't have to be just that. It can be community centers. It can be individuals that are raising up money and things like that. The point being is there are ways to do that. Some of the things that we can teach that the same places that many of our people are eating at today can actually be a healthy alternative when the proper food is ordered. I post routinely about my trips to Hardee's and Wendy's. Not necessarily McDonald's, although I don't hate on McDonald's. I just haven't eaten there in a long time. But Zaxby's, different places that I go to and I actually buy food from. And I show people how to eat properly from those. Now, those are still not the best alternatives. I'd rather for people to learn to eat whole foods cooked at home, because that's always going to be healthier because you control what the input is. However, someone's got to start somewhere. And if it's nothing but hot dogs and stuff have nitrates and all these other things, until we can really teach people that overall you will start saving money on a ketogenic diet because you'll eat less. Then you'll be able to buy better quality foods. And those things cycle into cost savings over time. And people start learning how to utilize better food. And then as the market grows, the food prices will become cheaper. And actually, the people that are in the inner city that maybe stay away from organic and all this other stuff right now, those prices will come down. Because when the demand is great, industry will follow demand. Right now, industry doesn't follow it. But you're starting to see a niche of products that are being geared towards keto. At first, it was keto-like products, but now you're starting to see real keto industries that are coming. You're starting to see stores that are starting to cater to low carb and keto. And that's what we're looking for. And that will trickle down to these inner city communities if we hold course and not be afraid. We cannot be afraid as the keto community to get out there and do this. And now I'm not talking about just the black community. I'm black, so I'm talking about that. But I'm also talking about Hispanic communities. I'm talking about Asian communities. I'm talking about all of these communities that are not normally in this keto sphere. And like I said, that's not a knock on the keto sphere. It's just the way it is. And we got to realize sometimes that things are the way they are, and we got to deal with them accordingly. And that's where I'm at today. And I just want to thank you for coming to me and listening. Share this video. I have a couple of videos on my timeline, but if there's one that we need to share within the keto sphere, it's this one. Tag some of these big name guys, Jimmy Moore and Keto Evangelist and some of these other people. I've already been on Keto Evangelist, but you know what? I'm not afraid to go back and talk again because, the brother treated me nice and Danny Vega treated me nice. And like I said, some of these other people behind the scene. John Lemansky read an email on his the Human Outliers podcast, Human Performance Outliers podcast. He read my email, and I didn't even know he was reading it. I was in the pool listening to his broadcast, and there it was on there. So I hit him up on Instagram and thanked him for that because it brought to light this issue, and so. Let's get together. Let's not be afraid. Let's start understanding what we need to do as a community to be able to tackle this issue. I just want to thank all of you for taking this time to listen to me, and thank yourselves for because I've seen it starting to proliferate in the community. Hey, it doesn't have to be me. I'm not trying to grandstand here. If someone else wants to rise up and do this deal, rise up and do it. It don't even have to be a black person. It don't have to be an Asian person, a Hispanic person. Somebody needs to raise up and bring this up. Because like I said, it just, the inner city communities and the underserved communities are always the last to get these information. That's just reality, folks. It's biblical to me as a Christian. My friend Muhammad will say it's part of the Quran as far as how his faith goes. And I have Buddhist friends who would tell you the same thing. The poor are always underserved. The poor are always the last ones to be helped. And it's not supposed to be that way. If you're Christian, you definitely need to be trying to share this message because you're serving the poor already. You should be. And to everyone else, hey, let's do this thing. Man, we have a lot of things to go. If you're in this country in America, there's no reason that you can't share this message. We have freedom of speech. You know, the doctors can't always share this medicine because they're bound by guidelines and everything. But you as a citizen, you have the opportunity to be able to speak on this. So let's get this done. Let's share this with everybody, and let's do our jobs. Our jobs in the keto sphere is to try to spread this message to everyone. If we feel like a segment is being ignored or overlooked, we need to make sure we make noise so that it's not. The discussion has to be great because we're great people and we're great in everything that we do in this sphere. We see it in how it's proliferated across social media and all these other things. So let's do that thing and make it great for all people. Dr. King, who is one of my heroes, wanted this to be part of his dream. And I say that because he wanted things to be shared amongst the races without a racial identity. And it starts, though, with recognizing when you have a problem. And his dream was for all of us to be treated equal. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. And like I said, it's not because of anything racial in the keto community. It's just because sometimes, along with the science and everything else, we don't always think about these things. So that's my point in my talk today. It's the most serious one I've had, except for some of the prayers and stuff that I've done. But I love you, and I thank you, and I praise you for all that you're doing. And I want to thank the big rock stars in the keto community for all that they're doing. I thank Jimmy Moore and some of these other people for bringing this topic up because it needs to be said. And because when we can get this segment of our population healed, it's really going to force, because a lot of them are forced to take this medication in the inner city because they have no avenue. They can't refuse the treatment because otherwise they just lose. They lose out on having a doctor. You know, they can't go and just change doctors. So it's a big deal. And that's the same way with a lot of communities too. But I'm trying to deal with the inner city community right now. So, hey, I thank you. I love you. God bless you. Peace.